Here we go. And let's get it started. So first off, I'm Kendra Baldwin. I am a senior associate on the energy team at NCAP. And this is our webinar, Solar for CAPS 201, Navigating the Changing Solar Landscape. And to kick us off will be Bill Grant, our consultant at NCAP for solar programs.
Thanks very much, Kendra, and welcome everyone. As Kendra mentioned, this is a Solar 201, which I guess implies that there was a Solar 101 at some point, but I wasn't here for that. We will be happy to answer questions at the end of the speakers that we have for you today. You see them listed here. We'll get to have each of them introduce themselves when it's their turn to speak. As Kendra mentioned, I'm a consultant with the National Community Action Partnership. Prior to my retirement in 2023, I was the executive director of MNCAP, the Minnesota State Association. And prior to that was, for 8 years, the state director of the State Energy Office. And my purview included both energy assistance and weatherization. We can go to the next slide, Kendra. So for today, we're going to cover the following items. First, I'm going to try to answer the question, why solar? And maybe more importantly, why now? We're going to talk about some of the models that are already out there being used by CAP agencies to bring solar to their own facilities or to their clients. Then we're going to hear from our speakers who are going to talk about some of the solar models that are already in action around the country, particularly here in Minnesota, since that's where I'm familiar, but that's a small subset of the actual work that's going on. And then we're going to close the speakers with a look at current solar policy and the financial landscape that solar projects are dealing with. We should have ample time for Q&A after that. If you want to post any questions you have either to the chat or to the Q&A function, that would be great. Next slide. So why solar now? You can go to the next slide, Kendra. So I think the first thing to know is that solar costs are falling and falling much faster relative to other energy sources. This is a little hard to read, but the top bar is solar photovoltaics, which is what we're going to be talking about, not solar thermal or other applications. And it is certainly competitive with the fossil fuel alternatives that you see toward the bottom of the chart. And we expect those trends to continue. Next slide. So the real reason to pursue solar is to lower energy burdens on behalf of your clients. With the programs that we're operating here in Minnesota, clients can expect to receive on average a 20% reduction in their household electric bills. That's about, at the electric rates here in Minnesota, that's about $250 a year for the average household not heating with electricity. And I say that not heating with electricity because if you are, you have much higher bills, of course, and that wouldn't impact the dollar savings that you're receiving. Also, in states with very high electric rates, New York and California come to mind. The dollar amount, of course, would be much higher, just given the electric rates that are going on in those states. And then 13 states currently require bill savings for clients or low and moderate income households that participate primarily in community solar programs, and we'll be talking more about those in just a moment. Okay, Kendra. Another important reason for CAPs to think about solar now is that it's a good way to earn discretionary income. Solar developers right now are paying CAPs here in Minnesota or other community partners, not just CAPs, paying them to identify income eligible subscribers and participants. The compensation levels can depend on the level of support that the CAP is giving to the solar developer. This could include providing lists of income eligible households as a minimum kind of threshold or level of work. But CAPs are also screening households for their potential interest in the programs, and some are even assisting households with the completion of applications to become subscribers. CAPs are also installing solar on CAP-owned buildings, and in that case, of course, your operating costs will be lower, especially as the investment in the solar facility is paid off. Can go to the next slide. Another important kind of societal reason for going solar now is the imperative to reduce environmental impacts. This happens in a couple of ways. First, by lowering hazard emissions from power plants, the fossil fuel power plants, coal, natural gas, that tend to be located closer to households experiencing low incomes. And this has been true for quite some time. There are also other emissions, such as mercury associated with coal-fired power plants, that can be reduced as we transition to renewables like solar. And the other big one, of course, is reducing greenhouse gas emissions that result in global warming. And these impacts also tend to impact those with lower incomes disproportionately. Can move on. Another important reason to think about solar, particularly if it's solar on a CAP-owned building or rooftop solar on clients' homes, and we'll be talking about that option as well, is that it's an opportunity to really build and diversify the workforce at CAPS. Solar experience is very much in demand as new projects come online, and solar installers are, as I say, very much in demand. It adds an important skill set for weatherization workers, particularly in those cases where states are looking to incorporate solar into their WAP programs. And it really creates opportunities to expand the list of measures that the weatherization program is contemplating. Can move on. So there are three major ways for CAPs to tap into solar right now. We can move on. First of these, and Steve Leitner is going to be talking about this option in just a moment, is to install solar on CAP-owned buildings, or if it's a ground-mounted system on property that a CAP may own. The basic formula here is to evaluate your solar potential. This is determined by looking at the orientation, southwest, northeast, southern exposure being the ideal, orientation to your roof, whether you have shading from trees or adjacent buildings, whether the roof system is adequate to put solar panels on or not. Second is to identify a solar contractor in the area that you're serving, obviously with the necessary due diligence, and this is something that we can be helpful with at NCAP. And finally, to arrange project financing. And this can take a variety of forms, and Steve will be talking about some of these, tax credits being the most prominent, but with a little bit of a warning, those tax credits are soon expiring. And so if you're thinking about solar on your building or on your property, time to move on that is sooner rather than later. We can move to the next slide. Second major kind of approach to joining the solar movement is by participating in what's called community solar. And I think this was probably covered in the earlier webinar, but basically community solar projects are owned by solar developers. They need not be on or adjacent to the customer that's going to become a subscriber to the project. The solar project generates electricity and then flows that electricity to the local utility who purchases that energy. And then the solar itself is subscribed to by a variety of customers, but in a number of states, there is now a requirement that a certain percentage of those subscribers be lower or moderate income. And then once that customer has subscribed to the solar project, then they receive a portion of the dollar value that's generated by the sale of the electricity to the utility as a credit on the customer's utility bill. Can move on. There are three major ways that CAPs are involved in community solar. The first is by assisting developers with customer acquisition. And we're going to be talking more about that. Debbie Brandt from United Cap and Greta Chiswick from US Solar will be talking more about all of this. But the second way then is by assisting to identify customers with lower moderate incomes in those states that require a certain percentage of community solar projects to have low and moderate income subscribers. And third is to actually then educate households on the community solar option to really go beyond just identifying those customers for use by the developer to really helping to help explain and understand what it means to be a subscriber to a community solar project. Next slide. One of the things that people are going to be most concerned about is how are they protected? And this is going to vary from state to state depending on the statutes and rules that are in place. Here in Minnesota, we have the following protections. There are no fees either upfront or during the course of the subscription for households that are participating. There are no credit checks that are performed. Customers can exit the program or relocate and take the subscription with them. It's portable. Developers also must adhere to a code of conduct, and in order to do that, they are vetted by the state agency that's responsible for administering the program. And finally, and very importantly, in states that require it, consolidated billing. What this means basically is that rather than getting two bills, one from the solar developer and one from the utility, instead the utility takes the credit and applies it to the customer's bill directly so that they are seeing that reduction and they're only getting one bill every month. Next slide. This is a map of states that have community solar policies in place. You can see that it varies quite a bit, but a lot of states are currently involved. In some states, it's just that there are community solar projects going on. That's the orange states. The blue hash states are states with community solar enabling legislation. But you can see that there are nearly 20 states that have legislation that requires lower and moderate income participation in community solar. So it's become quite prevalent around the country. Next slide. And then the third way that CAP clients can be involved in solar is to actually have rooftop solar put on their own houses. Obviously, that would be limited to those clients that own their own homes. It starts with a feasibility evaluation, much like what I described before if you were putting solar on your own building. And then work can be done as part of a weatherization job that's going on with the same household. And Tammy Alto from CAP Hennepin is going to be talking more about this option in a little bit. Next slide. So we're going to turn now to our other speakers. First up is going to be Stephen Leitner with ECAP and CAP Solar. Stephen?
Thank you, Bill. My name is Stephen Leitner. I'm the president of CAP Solar. CAP Solar, the Kresge Foundation, and NCAP have come together and created a program called ECAP. So that's just us creating something that the entire network can use as a resource. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we are a partnership between the Kresge Foundation and NCAP that has created this program, but CAP Solar is part of Greater Bergen Community Action in New Jersey. And we have been a renewable energy developer for the last 11 years. Our first 36 projects are centered around New Jersey, but we have reached out to the network broadly for the last 5 or 6 years when new legislation becomes available that is favorable towards nonprofits. We right now only serve nonprofits. And because of that, and our being part of the network, we actually think of the nonprofit and the community action mission first, and the solar developer role as secondary. I know what it's like to run a lot of the programs inside of community action, whether it's energy assistance, weatherization. I've even dabbled a bit in Head Start and advise our executive boards on innovative paths forward. The biggest thing is that we don't make a profit off the cost of power. And that's not just because we're a community action agency, but us having seen inside the goings on of community action, I always liken it to the fact that we don't charge parents a fee to go to Head Start, or people who are in need of food banks. We don't charge them for their food. Why would we charge community action agencies providing those services a profit on top of that? The way we do that is that we are really well versed in incentive programs, tax credit programs, foundations, etc. Our first 36 deals were done in partnership with Goldman Sachs, and not the fun part of Goldman Sachs, the really tax credit heavy financial planning part of Goldman that invests in urban areas. And lastly, because we want you to own the project, we have hybrid ways of owning it. We can own it and charge you a less rate than you pay now. And even after you sign that contract, all the way through the 15 or 20-year contract that you have with us, you can buy yourself out a little bit at a time or all at once. We want to push the ownership of this project to you to continue the maximum impact on your bottom line. Next, please. Thank you. So we have a new reality in this country when it comes to renewable energy. If anybody would have told me a little bit more than a year ago, we would be sitting having these conversations, I would have thought that no matter what the administration was, that it would be too far-fetched. If you're keeping up with the news, not only did the $20 billion of greenhouse gas reduction fund monies get clawed back, but so has the Solar for All, which is the $7 billion that went directly to states to provide low-income solutions with renewable energy. But these are all in litigation. But being in litigation is you know, some hope. But for developers like us doing projects now, we can't rely on cheap funds or grants to be able to build these. And as a double whammy, this really impacts nonprofit focused renewable developers like us. We have to find really, really interesting ways to try to preserve our mission of delivering the lowest cost power possible to our clients, which are community action agencies. So we've partnered with some very interesting organizations in the for-profit world. One who is going to be our national builder and provide us cash for tax equity to lower the cost of these projects to unseen amounts, more than half, so that we could pass those savings to you, has been so impacted by what the administration has done that they need to fold their renewable energy division, which has impacted our push pretty dramatically. I've talked to maybe several people on this webinar, and maybe about 60 or 70 other community action agencies. And we were pushing forward pretty aggressively with about 10 pilots over the last year and a half. And we've had to slow that down and target really what we're moving forward with. And glad to say that we are moving forward, but it's been a substantial delay because of the administration's policies, and just waiting sort of for what came out of the big beautiful bill and how it's going to impact not only renewable energy but energy as a whole for your organizations and ours. So pilots that we have now sort of have been pushed to high incentive states with high electric rates. So that's a lot of the East, the Northeast, and the West Coast, Hawaii included. I would have loved to do some pilots in Washington State, but your power is 8 cents instead of the Connecticut power, which is 30. That doesn't mean that your states are not going to get projects. It just means it might take a little longer in order to be able to establish those innovative ways of financing them. One of the sure ways to getting projects in any state is if community action agencies bind together and they propose we can propose all of those projects at the same time, which will dramatically lower the cost of power. So there's a little work in there on your part that we will spearhead with you, and we can take this process completely out of your hands, or you can be as involved in it as you like. Partners that we've discussed on our pivot, I just keep calling it a pivot. I've pivoted a lot, but we've pivoted at least 40 times in the last year. The Kresge Foundation has been a great backer. NCAP has been an invaluable partner. But we have, through the adversity of what's going on, we have created new partners with the Green Panks impact investors who like to see more than a cash return, who want to see actual impact in communities. Some influential lobbyist type groups like Bryson Hull and others who we form partnerships with. But one of the more exciting ones is the Groundswell, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Look, just because it's a difficult time doesn't mean these projects are going to end and the tax credits are going to just disappear tomorrow. But for commercial activity, we have until July 4th of 2026, which is 1 year after the big beautiful bill was signed, to still apply for all of the tax credits. we as the developers need to pay for 5% of your project to our developers, to our builders, and then those tax credits are secure. So it might sound like the sky is falling, but for commercial projects, you really have until July 4th to get with us and try to build those projects with you. We have the money to do it. So we can put down that 5% for a project that is going to have a positive impact, going to have a positive bottom line for both parties, so that those projects can be sustained. Now, you'll hear that two things. One, the residential credits, which we'll talk, another party will talk about. Those credits expire January 1st. And in the commercial sense, the use of foreign products, Chinese solar panels, etc., those credits expire January 1st as well. But don't let a developer come to you and say, you don't have any time, you have to do this now before January 1st, and take a lot of pressure on yourselves, because the reality is, if you use American-made products, we have until July 4th, 2026. I know that's a lot of information. Hopefully we can clear that up. I did neglect to put my email address on these slides. My apology. It'll be provided for you in the chat after I'm done. Next slide, please. So I would like to describe, on top of what Bill described, the 3 projects that we are doing, some of which are in active rollout right now. Next slide, please. So this is a real project that we're bidding out construction for. Is New Opportunities Inc. in Torrington, Connecticut. Connecticut is a zero incentive state, but they have 30-cent power. So no matter what that is, whether they had 18 or 20 or 30-cent power, we can reduce their cost of energy pretty substantially, just based on the fact that we'll be replacing a lot of their energy consumption. This particular project is a subsidiary of New Opportunities that is a hydroponic lettuce growing greenhouse company. They employ people in danger of recidivism, developmentally disabled people, and they have a lot of support from Connecticut to do so. They are expanding dramatically across the street from here, so they've left this space open for renewable energy projects. And this is just solar for now, but since it's a 24-hour business using a lot of energy, we can replace with this installation about 75% of their consumption and cut their costs initially by 20 to 40%. And like I said, just because you've signed a contract and we've built your system, it doesn't mean that the costs go up, they stay static there. They can go down with certain conditions, and we can talk about that at another time. The next slide, please.
Just a time check, Stephen. Another couple minutes.
Yep, that's it. Just 2 more slides. So this is a project in Illinois that is a hybrid approach. So the box on the right will power 100% of the building that they use there for Head Start. But the box on the left with the remaining land, and Illinois is a great community solar state, that will power up to 300 to 500 homes that are clients of this same Head Start. So we can get very innovative. This wouldn't be a normal project a normal developer would take on. It's very administrative heavy, but this is a project that we're excited to do moving forward in Illinois. Next project, next slide, please. So this is where I wanted to spend a little more sentences on. We have a potential project in Virginia that for a gigantic, this would be a 10 megawatt, that'd be the size of utility scale, but only for community action clients. These are very unusual to have in certain states, no matter if they have legislation or not. But we partner with Groundswell, who is a nonprofit that provides low-cost energy to people, mostly low-income people in the South. The South is very hostile towards renewable energy, but in states like Alabama, if you work with your energy cooperatives are not like the regular large utilities. They can make up any rule they want. So in Southern Alabama, we have an opportunity with a cooperative utility there to actually build a large community solar project, as well as in, like I said, Virginia, which is a little more lenient, and pretty much any state that has a co-op. If you are in a co-op area, the partnership between Groundswell and us, we can actually work with them, the co-op, and get you community solar for your clients. It's a very, very niche market, but it impacts because a lot of cooperatives are in very, very low income areas. So that's something to keep mind of. Next slide, please. Very, very quickly, from a year ago to now, these are, and you pick your region, these are the electricity costs alone for residential and commercial generation. This is not including the future years of the AI data centers, which will make these spike dramatically, which is why it's confusing that the current administration has chosen not to have a backup or a cheap supply of power for people to level out their utility bills. This is, this is where the next pivots come from when we see this. Next, please. So I want to touch on this a little bit more on this offline, but very, very quickly. There's three ways you can own it. You can buy it and we can build it, or we can advise you. We have an advisory if you just want to talk about moving forward and help you. We own it. You pay a less fee than you pay now on the electric that you generate. And then there's the third way, which I had discussed, where you can start by paying less for the energy you have, but slowly you can own it over time. And we would work with you to show you that if you pay part of the project, the cost of your power actually will go down. If you want any more information on this, I'm glad to provide it offline. And the next slide, please. This is just provide this to you with the slides. This is just an overview of how we are different from other developers. A lot of this was discussed in the previous slides. Again, very happy to go over with you. I'm running out of time. And probably the most important slide, the next one, these are some of the questions that you need to ask when you want to consider solar, when a developer comes to you or you go to a developer, and they are going to know a lot more than you do, which they're supposed to, but some will be more forceful. And I'd like to offer our services. If you do decide to go to another developer, we would be very happy to help you identify some of the things that you would want to ask and the answers that you get back. I've done this for, I don't know, 20 caps. I've looked at the contracts they have existing, and I advise them, we don't charge for this, advise them on what this contractor, what this developer is getting from them and what they should be able to expect. Again, this is a complicated topic that we try to make much more simple, but being so detailed, there's a lot of information here to digest. And like I said, get in touch. We would be happy to go over it with you. Bill, thank you for the opportunity for this. Sorry, we're in a couple minutes late. But again, I thank everybody for joining the webinar. You're
good, Stephen. Thanks very much. We're going to turn now to my good friend Debbie Brandt at United Community Action Partnership in Western Minnesota. Debbie?
Thank you, Bill. As Bill said, my name is Deb Brandt, and I am the Executive Director at United Community Action, or we call ourselves UCAP because otherwise it's just a huge mouthful. So we are actually located in West Central Southwest Minnesota. We have a large geographical area that we cover. Several years ago, Bill cast a wide net over our state association to say, hey, let's have some conversations about solar. Well, our agency, along with our neighboring agency, Prairie 5, got hooked in the net. And we were basically setting up meetings and visiting with several different solar providers. But we found that not really all of them met who we were as an agency and what we were looking for as an outcome for the families that we serve. Next slide, please. So things that we talked about were, number one, does it meet our mission? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the staffing? What is the cost to us? And what is the bottom line for the families that we serve? Well, after visiting with US Solar, we really found that because we run an energy assistance program, weatherization, small cities, and a lot of other housing development programs, that it was kind of a natural fit for community action to get involved, because who would think a solar company and a CAP coming together and finding where our missions intersect? Next slide, please. So what made the difference for us as kind of the boots on the ground implementer of this new partnership? Number one was the win for the families that we serve. Our agency, as many CAPs are trusted, well-known partners, and we have established relationships with many of the households. Now, in some of the larger cities, you've got a lot of other things going on, but in our rural areas, we are probably the only show in town. And so people really know who we are. It could be the food shelves, the Head Start centers, all of the different emergency housing programs that we have, thrift stores. People just know who we are in the rural area. And some of the things that we had heard from individuals who had participated with other solar companies in the past was, these strangers came knocking at my door. I gave them my bank routing number. I gave them my social security number. I was surprised when I got that monthly subscription fee. They were just taking money out of my accounts. That was a huge concern for us. We really do a lot of education about fraud. Be careful who you give the information to. So we knew that as a trusted partner of the families that we serve, prior to going into anything, those things had to be checked off the box so families would not be put in that sort of a situation. We also wanted to look at a win for our agency. We're a nonprofit, you can't do things for nothing. And so we were able to come up with a plan that our staff would do the work of getting the applications taken with families. Because basically we have the energy assistance program, we have information to that data. We wouldn't have to worry about releases of information. We could go door to door and talk to families, and that's exactly what we did with our staff, and they knew us. And one of the things that we did when we went door to door is we picked one of our local communities that we had just done a small cities program in. And so they knew who we were, they knew that we were in town and whatnot, and it worked so very well. The other thing is we wanted to make sure that there was a win for the solar company. So we kept talking about the triple win that we had to have. They not only listened, but they heard what our concerns were. US Solar was the only company of all of the ones that we worked with that really took the time to dig deep, ask us more probing questions about what we would need in order to move on with the partnership. And to us, sustainable partnerships, they're built on a common valued purpose, and that it's something that's good for everybody. Now, one of the few naysayers that we had was a few of our county commissioners on our board of directors. They, again, rural area, they were worried about farmers having to sell their land. And we just had a lot of education and information shared by the US Solar team that came to our board meetings, and they did a 180 on us. And that completely flipped their mindset. They saw that, oh my goodness, farmers are doing this because some of them, this is the way that they're going to be saving their farm, because they're going to be getting some funds also from the solar company when they lease land. Next slide, please. So where does the rubber meet the road? What we did is we sat down with US Solar and we actually worked with them on developing the application process, the software that was used, that when our staff went door to door, we had an iPad, because in our rural area, many times the internet is either partially existent or non-existent. And some of the families that we have, because of their low income status, don't have the availability of the internet. They probably don't even have technology to be able to use the internet. So we took everything right to those households. And going door to door, we had that little iPad with an application on it that really we took a lot of time to set it up. We had a couple changes throughout as we were developing this, but it is so user friendly. It's not difficult for our staff to operate, and it's very, very simplistically laying things out for the families that we work with. So we did some targeted outreach, and we queried some of our high energy consumption users from our LIHEAP program, and those are the households that we really focused on. And we now have 35 households that are taking advantage and getting the benefits of a new solar garden that was just put into place. You can see those households had a very, very high energy consumption usage, over 18,000 kilowatt hours. And again, the savings that they're going to realize hopefully will just really help with some of that income that they have coming in. Next slide, please. So I think what really made this count is that we weren't told what to do or prescribed, you need to do this. We were actually at the planning table for months with US Solar, coming up with the application process again, the outreach materials. They check back with us what's working well, what's not working so well. We gave our input and things were tweaked as we went along. Communication was absolutely key. And it started with the executive directors and our housing or LIHEAP weatherization staff. And then at the very end, now basically US Solar is communicating with our staff who are actually doing the hands-on boots on the ground work. So love all the marketing materials that they have given to us. We did not have to develop anything. We were able though to provide input and tweaking of it. And our information is the information that goes on there. US Solar has the logo, but we are the local contact. And again, it goes back to that trusted relationship that we have with families. So I will also put my contact information in there. Thank you, Bill, for this opportunity.
Thanks so much, Debbie. That was great. And to follow up Debbie's presentation, we're going to hear from Greta Chiswick and Kaylee. Sorry, Kaylee, forgetting your last name, with information from the developer's perspective from US Solar that worked with UCAP and Prairie 5 in Minnesota. Take it away, Greta.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Debbie. We're here to just share a little bit more context. Actually, Kaylee will be the first one, and then I'll follow up with a little bit more detail to what Debbie shared. But first, I'll say I'm Greta Chiswick. I'm our Director of Partnerships here at US Solar, and this has been one of my favorite projects that we've worked on this past year. So really excited to talk about this. And I'll pass it to Kaylee.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Kaylee Brown. I'm the Impact Partnerships Manager at US Solar, working on Greta's team. I've been with US Solar for about 6 months, and in that time, I've really been kind of immersed in helping to implement and capture learnings from this pilot partnership with UCAP and Prairie 5. I'm glad to be participating in the conversation today. Next slide, please. Okay, so our goal is really to kind of share some of those learnings, and just wanted to note that we really agree that these kind of cross-sector partnerships are really going to be key to making sure that the benefits of renewable energy are more universally accessible. And we kind of hope that this example could maybe spark an idea for you of how you might explore a partnership in service of your own stakeholders. Next slide. Just a quick bit about US Solar. So we are a full service developer and community solar subscription manager. Been in operation for over 10 years. Our home office, our home market is here in Minnesota. And we also have projects and staff in a number of other states and have a particular focus on New Mexico and Colorado and Illinois, just to name a few of them. This is just kind of an example of some of the many partnerships that we've been proud to build over the last several years and are really using those to kind of continue growing the ways we can reach people with this opportunity. Next slide, please. Okay, so Bill did a really great job of kind of overviewing this, so I won't spend too much time on it, but just a quick refresher on kind of what community solar is and how it works. As Bill shared, there is nuance on the mechanics of this based on how each state wrote its legislation for community solar, but today we'll be focusing on Minnesota. Essentially, community solar just creates an opportunity for households, organizations, and businesses to subscribe, which helps fund a community solar garden to be built elsewhere in the state. So that garden generates renewable energy for the grid. Here in Minnesota, Xcel Energy is the utility provider that manages the grid. And then in exchange for that subscription, the account holder or the household receives a bill credit directly on their Xcel Energy monthly bill. Here in Minnesota, the low and moderate income accessible program does require that the cost of the subscription is always going to be lower than the bill credit. So there's a guaranteed level of savings every month for these households to participate. A few sort of key things here in Minnesota that really facilitated this partnership with the CAAs to really take off was the establishment of that low and moderate income accessible program. The second is that the state removed the county adjacency requirements. And so previously in the old program, subscribers needed to live in or adjacent to the county that the solar garden was operating, which really limited the opportunity for Minneapolis and St. Paul metro area residents to participate, just because, of course, the land availability was very limited in those areas. So that requirement was removed. And then a big one is that Minnesota adopted utility consolidated billing. So that just means that the households or organizations, whoever is subscribing, is no longer going to receive a separate bill. So the bill credit shows up directly on their bill, makes it a lot easier to understand. Households don't have to kind of look at the two bills and to see the savings and reconcile that. They're just going to see it directly on the bill that they're already used to paying every month. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a projected savings example of a theoretical household that has a subscription size of about 8,000 kilowatt hours. So our team has estimated that on average, a single family house would be somewhere in the neighborhood of around 10,000 kilowatt hours. Certainly we've seen households with smaller energy usage, think like multifamily buildings, they might have small units. Certainly, we've also seen households that have a lot higher usage, such as a lot of those that the UCAP and Prairie 5 teams in Greater Minnesota have signed up. So it really varies. In this example, the household could expect to see somewhere around 259 dollars in savings over the course of the first year, and then 8,000 over the full 25-year lifespan of the solar garden if they were to stay in the program and in the garden for that whole time. The savings, of course, go up and down according to that subscription size. And then in that bill example there on the right, you can just see that in the other recurring charges section, you can see that highlighted area here. That's just where that solar garden credit's going to show up on the bill for them. Next slide, please. Okay, so CAAs really play a critical role in reducing the enrollment burden for households who are interested in participating. In Minnesota, households do have to demonstrate their income eligibility to participate. However, the CAP is able to do that on the household's behalf. So there's several different pathways that this verification could be done. And through our pilot, we found sort of the easiest and least invasive way for the household is for that CAP to verify for the resident that they participate in another assistance program like LIHEAP, SNAP, Weatherization, Head Start. Any of those automatically qualify you for this community solar garden program. And then, in a state like New Mexico, for example, their law allows for self-attestation, meaning that the household can just self-attest to their eligibility. They don't need to attach any kind of documentation when they enroll. So it really does vary. Next slide, please. Now I'll pass it over to Greta to kind of talk a little bit about what this looked like in practice and kind of how we're going to apply those learnings moving forward.
Thank you, Kaylee. So a little bit of what I'll be talking about here is a lot of what Debbie highlighted and really how we felt like this relationship, we're kind of bringing our community solar operation and expertise paired with the trusted community engagement and relationships that that UCAP and Prairie 5 had is really what made this partnership so strong and how we felt like it was bringing benefits to so many of the stakeholders. So this was a new program, as Kaylee mentioned, in Minnesota, as we were shifting kind of how do we show up in this program? we realized ourselves as a developer had a handful of challenges to consider. For the first part, we didn't have experience kind of engaging and focusing on traditionally low to moderate income households through community solar. So we didn't have any of those trusted relationships built. As much as Kaylee did an amazing job explaining community solar, it can be a pretty complicated product to sell, especially when you don't have the benefit of utility consolidated billing, which we're very glad is a part of this program now. But it can, if someone also is trying to sell you rooftop solar and then you bring in community solar, there's a lot to understand as a part of it. And I think a piece of that is that there has been a lot of solar scams, exactly to what Debbie was talking about, throughout multiple different states and communities. And how do we make sure that we don't show up as a part of that? And when we were just unfamiliar with best practices in terms of how to customize outreach for a traditionally low to moderate income population. And so that's where the CAAs came in already, where they were trusted partners in the community. They're very skilled at explaining and administering complex assistance programs, and already very familiar with how to handle sensitive information on the household's part. As you saw, those multiple pathways to showing their income qualified, some of those could be quite invasive. And we as a solar developer don't want to be responsible for an individual household who is supposed to redact private information, but maybe does it wrong. We wanted to make sure that we're doing this in a way that was as least invasive as possible for the household and helped protect their information as much as possible. And the CAAs played a huge role in informing us on how best to do that and kind of the process that they already had in place. And we were already just values aligned in terms of what was important to the CAAs and what we knew was important and what the program was set up to do. And what we as a developer wanted to make sure that we did this in a trusting way. You can go to the next slide, please. So this goes into a little bit more detail about the process. And I think what's important to note on this is the preparation was even longer than the enrollment process. The CAAs figured that was quite quickly, but I think that was where we felt like we were so appreciative of the time that Prairie 5 and UCAP put into this, is it really helped us understand how do we need to change our enrollment tools, how do we need to change our software, how do we need to change our outreach materials to better prepare them and to better serve their customers. So that made that enrollment process go so smoothly. And so there was a lot of time on everyone's side of working through challenges, identifying what made things easier or harder. And I think we're really proud at where we're at with our software and enrollment tool to make this as easy as possible for the CAAs and as easy as possible for the households as well. So then that shifted into how the CAAP was really the one being the face of this product out to the customer, helping explaining it. They'd come back with questions to us. We'd help answer, figure it out, go to the Minnesota Department of Commerce is who's managing this program here in Minnesota. We'd raise things up to them if there was any kind of a program level question. But that's really when it shifted into active enrollment and engagement. And there is a third player in this. This is the utility. Excel is who manages this program here. And the shift to the LMI accessible program was new for Excel as well. So it took some time for them to work through the enrollment process on their end. It goes from enrolling with us as the developer to then the utility needs to verify account information and things like that. And that all takes time. But I think we've really started to figure that out between the three parties here. And as we've talked about, we know that this isn't just out of the goodness of the heart for the CAAs, and this is really part of our business. So we were very intentional in setting up a relationship that compensated the CAAs for the work and the time and investment going into this, that then allows us to continue to keep bringing these opportunities and continue to scale up community solar in Minnesota. You can go to the next slide, please. So I think this is building off of the win-win-win that Debbie talked about. We felt like all stakeholders really needed to be benefiting as a part of this. The households were the front and center of kind of who we are all looking to serve, and that was guaranteeing energy cost savings to these households. We wanted to make sure the community action partners were well compensated, and we also felt like you guys, the CAAs, I'm speaking on your behalf, but it felt like you were excited to be able to bring another service to your constituents, especially at a time where those were potentially being questioned and challenged. And we have, from these relationships, we're able to feel very confident in terms of our ability to fill these gardens and then grow and scale in Minnesota. And I think the final thing that I'll say is community solar is a really interesting model that is making sure more people can participate in the solar transition that don't necessarily have a house that could handle a roof or land that they could lease for a solar garden. And interestingly, so in Minnesota at this time, community solar was the legislation was a little bit kind of under question. And so we wanted to be really intentional about showing a program that can really have powerful impact. And so we felt like we really did that with this partnership and are excited about kind of where community solar is headed in Minnesota. And in that sense, there's many different states. I think a handful have talked about this already on the panel that already have community solar, several of them focusing on the low to moderate income population. US Solar alone, we're looking to, over the next couple of years, bring community solar subscription savings to over 6,000 qualifying households in Minnesota. We're building gardens in New Mexico, hoping to benefit over 2,000 qualifying households. In Colorado, these next few gardens go online in the next couple of months, and that should benefit over 5,000 households. And so we really feel like regardless if it's community solar or some of the other program types that have been talked about on this webinar, there's a lot of important opportunities coming out there to really bring energy savings to different households. And I think even more so at a time when we're all seeing the electric headlines of these electric costs rising. And we really find that finding these kind of cross-sector public-private partnerships where it's really mission aligned and we can make sure all stakeholders benefit, we think is a key way to kind of achieving these goals. So thank you all for the time.
Thanks so much, Greta. We're going to turn now to rooftop solar, and Tammy Alto from Community Action of Hennepin County is going to lead us through that. Tammy?
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here. My name is Tammy Alto, and I'm the Director of Energy Assistance for Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County. I've been with Community Action for over 18 years and at Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County for just a little over 4 years. Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County is mostly a metropolitan area that is known for the city of Minneapolis, but it does encompass both suburban areas as well as rural areas. We are the largest energy assistance provider for the state of Minnesota, receiving close to 30,000 applications for energy assistance each season. Today, I am here to talk about rooftop solar and our experience partnering with All Energy Solar. Next slide, please. When asked why we partner with All Energy Solar, two main reasons come to the forefront. The first being to reduce a household's energy burden. Within the over 18 years I've been working with an energy assistance, at the center of that work is helping households with the goal of reducing their household burden on energy, which enables them to reach energy security and move towards financial security. It's all about energy independence. The installation of rooftop solar decreases the household's energy costs, which in turn allows that household to move towards security. The reduction of cost to energy of the households not only decreases their energy assistance grant, as well as, well, first it decreases their the cost of their energy. It decreases their energy assistance grant, which then allows us in turn to serve more households, which is another one of those win-win situations. In addition, a second reason is is that the household really receives these benefits. The way the program has been structured is that the household receives solar panels on their home at no cost to them. They lease their roof to the solar company for 10 years, in which All Energy Solar takes on the burden of the cost for maintenance and upkeep. After 10 years, the solar panels revert at no cost to the homeowner. The program is transferable, so if a homeowner sells their home, the best part is that if they sell their home, the solar panels, the whole contract kind of moves, the lease moves with the sale, and that's wonderful. But the best part is that the homeowner immediately receives the benefit of the solar panels with the decrease of their consumption, which can lead to a dramatic decrease in their bills. Next slide, please. The program that All Energy Solar provides to the household is called the Solstice Program. There's a few parts to the program. The first is being the determination of qualifications. So does the household qualify for the program? This is where CAPHC came into the picture. The second is to evaluate the property for acceptance. This takes place with a solar audit that All Energy Solar provides, making sure that the household has a roof that's acceptable, it's not too old, it's in good shape, that the house is faced the right way, avoiding tree coverage are some of the things that they are looking for. The third step was that they design a solar panel placement for the roof. So each solar panel job is customized to that home. The next step is that they apply for the permits. And then the fifth step is to install the panels. And the final step is that the household gets to enjoy the benefits of having the solar panels on their roof. Next slide, please. So how this worked for Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County, what did we need to do? The first step was that we had to create an MOU between our agency and All Energy Solar. The MOU stated what work we would do, which was basically providing the referrals, speaking with the households, getting the customer buy-in. And then they pay. So then not only was it the referrals, but it was the negotiation of how Community Action Partnership was going to be compensated. Like Deb said, we're a nonprofit. I said, we don't do this work for free. But we did it pretty cheaply. What we agreed to do on our end was that we agreed to take one of my intake staff members, who is our customer facing staff, and loan him to All Energy. And so they paid his salary and fringe benefits to do the work of providing the referrals for a specific amount of time. So we didn't make a huge profit, but I was able to kind of in kind save money through energy assistance by doing this. The next step is we needed to confirm that we had permission from the Minnesota Department of Commerce to utilize the applicant list of approved homeowners who received energy assistance the previous year. Once that approval was confirmed, I was able to say, go forward, Leon, and start contacting households and working with All Energy Solar to provide the referrals. Our staff member called homeowners. I said he got really good at cold calling households, and he was able to explain the Solstice program to them and what the benefits were. He did get a lot of, "Are you sure this isn't a scam? You're saying it's free?" And he's like, "Nope, this isn't a scam." And because we have that relationship, being a community action with these households and providing the services that we do, it was an easy sell to get households to getting excited and engaged with the process. All Energy Solar provided originally a targeted neighborhood set of zip codes where we kind of zeroed in on those areas in Minneapolis. But as it expanded, I said we did expand into the suburban areas like the Brooklyn Park area, the Brooklyn Center area, the Richfield and the Bloomington areas. We would also check the house profile with Google Maps to make sure that the direction of the house looked good. But even Google Maps doesn't give you the whole picture. So that really kind of we gave them a list, and then they're like, okay, well, that one didn't work. So when they went out on their audit. But what he would do is he would actually go into the Salesforce system, and he would create the appointment and do the confirmation email with the household that this is it, after he had put the solar audit on the auditor's calendar. Next slide, please. So you may be wondering what our experience was. Working with All Energy Solar was fantastic. I would say it was easy peasy. The partnership between our staff member Leon, who you see here on the screen, and All Energy Solar team was super easy. In fact, All Energy had tried, during his time with them, working with them, they tried to poach him to come work for him several times. So he was a, very good community action representative, in which he said, thank you, I enjoy doing the work, but I'm going to stick with community action. I like helping people. As Leon said, multiple times, his job was easy to get the client buy-in. As soon as he said he was with community action, again, we had that relationship. It was super easy to get them to buy in. Our expectations were actually surpassed. I said, when we originally were contacted, it was to help provide 100 referrals. And we way exceeded the 100 referrals, and we extended the MOU contract 3 times during the time that we were working with them. The key to the work was the upfront honesty about the benefits, the timeline, and the follow through on what was going to happen for the household. Next slide, please. So how it went. We partnered with All Energy Solar for a referral program that ran 7 months. We started in July of 2024, and it went to February of 2025 with a little bit of cleanup in March. We provided 402 qualified referrals. That's not all the referrals we provided. These were just the qualified ones during that time when they had originally asked for 100. 165 of these households have successfully received rooftop solar, and they have 65 additional households that are approved and waiting for additional funding to complete their installation. We help them spend through not only 2025's dollars, but 2026's funding. And right now we're tentatively scheduled to resume our partnership in May of 2026 to continue to provide referrals for the 2027 installations. The question I get asked a lot was whether it was worth it. And I say absolutely yes. Again, easy peasy, and reduction of energy burden for our LIHEAP households is a huge win-win. Next slide, please. So in case you're still not convinced on if this would be beneficial for your organization to do or not, and be interested in it, I want to tell you about Lee. Leon spoke with Lee about the Solstice program in July of 2024. He was one of our first households that we contacted, and he immediately said yes. He was a little hesitant at first because he was thinking nothing's for free. Leon talked to him again about the program, and he actually looked at he had Lee send him pictures of the house and the sun, and he's like, yep, this looks like it's going to be fine. It's going to be feasible. All Energy designed and installed the solar panels on the roof. I said, the picture there is an example of, that is the solar panels that they put on, that were designed for him and placed on his roof. Lee stated that Leon was that support, and that the support to the solar that was provided was a real peace of mind for him. He doesn't need to worry about paying his electric bills, as well as his health insurance, because once the solar system was installed, his electricity is pretty much free. It's allowed him to pay for other things like his health insurance. That's all I have for you today. It is worth it. If you are interested in partnering with a company like All Solar and providing rooftop solar, it was a fantastic opportunity that Bill had brought to our executive director, Dr. Clarence Hightower, and we are just thrilled at the outcome and can't wait to do it again. So thank you for your time today, and I will put, like everybody else, I will put my contact information in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tammy. I think we're going to do a quick poll now before we turn it over to Ben Paulos as our last speaker.
Yes, you should have just gotten a pop-up, just a quick little temp check for about what you've heard from our amazing speakers so far. Would love to see what you guys are feeling, what interest you guys are seeing on the different program types. And we're already getting some answers coming in. And in the interest of time, I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds before I end the poll. Okay, and as you can see, it seems like we've got some good interest in all three of the project types, which is great to hear. You will be hearing from us later regarding your interest. On that note, we will turn it over to Ben to talk about the current landscape.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Paulos. I'm with the Clean Energy States Alliance, which is a consortium of state energy offices and other agencies from around the country. Next slide. We've been working on low-income solar for quite a while. And I'm going to give a quick overview of the policy and financial context that it works in. And I'm going to be quick, so please refer to the recording afterward so you can see some of the text. We've heard about behind the meter solar, utility scale, big solar projects, and community solar. I'm mostly talking about community, but also a little bit about behind the meter policies. Next one. So there are different forms of community solar. The most common is a subscription service where the homeowner or the customer subscribes to the solar output and gets a credit on their bill. But there are other forms. One is an ownership model where the customer owns panels that are part of the offsite system, or where the customer is a member owner in a solar cooperative. And lastly, community solar has been integrated into energy assistance programs around the country in different ways. Next one. So the subscription model, it's the most common by far. That's where the system is owned by a utility or a solar company. The value is conveyed to the subscriber through a bill credit. And that's what we've heard about from Minnesota and New York and many other places. Next. The ownership model is where the subscriber or the customer buys a few panels as part of a big community solar project. They own them, they can sell them, but they get the value of the generation. The generation is essentially conveyed via their bill to their bill. So there's some examples in Texas, in the Midwest, and elsewhere. Next. The cooperative model is less common. I've heard of them now in Minnesota and Illinois, where the community solar project is owned by a cooperative. The member owners of it get the value of it. Either they subscribe to it and they get the value as a bill credit, or they get a dividend from the profits paid to them in cash. And the example in Minnesota, Cooperative Energy Futures, has been at it for a while. Next. Then the last one is the energy assistance model, where solar is essentially plugged into the energy assistance program, either with a cap or through utilities or other ways. The example I like the most actually is in Southern California, the Imperial Irrigation District. They have a big 30 megawatt solar project in the desert making really cheap power, and they just put the value of that on the bills of their energy assistance customers. No marketing at all, just just plugged right into it. So it's like an additional form of an additional benefit, like LIHEAP cash instead. All right, next. I'm sorry, I'm cold today, so I'll try not to cough too much. So the big policy, there are a number of policies I'm going to go over here in a minute. The big one is federal tax credits, 30% tax credit in the ITC, the investment tax credit, and then a per kilowatt hour credit for the production tax credit. The residential one is known as 25D. That's the one I think Stephen mentioned is ending at the end of this year. That's where you buy it, you put it on your house, you get the tax credit. That has actually not been that helpful for low-income households because they often don't pay enough in taxes to monetize the credit. And you don't get a credit beyond what you pay in taxes. The commercial ones are section 45 and 48. If a project is owned by a third party, like Cap Solar or a community action agency, or some other third party like US Solar, they're commercial entities. So these are the credits they get. And as we heard, they have to commence construction before July 4th and come online within about a year after that. There are two important variations on it for non-taxed entities like cap agencies. One is called elective pay, where you can take the value of the tax credit in cash, essentially, if you're a non-taxed entity. And the other is transferability, where you can sell the credit to an investor who needs the tax credit. There are bonus credits based on Made in America requirements if it's located in a so-called energy community, or if the project supports low-income or tribal communities. The next one. And we have an illustration of that here. Excuse me. This is how they can stack up. The base amount is the blue area, which adds up to 30. If you're an energy community, which is often a place where there like used to be a coal mine or a power plant that has high unemployment, you can get an extra 10%. If you're using domestic content, you can get another 10% beyond that. So that alone can add up to 50%, and there's no budget limit on that. There's an addition for low-income communities. That is limited to a certain number of projects a year, although I looked up the numbers, and in 2023, it was almost 50,000 projects that were able to get this bonus credit. So if you can stack up all of these, if you can ring all these bells, you can get a 70% tax credit, but only before next July. So the sale is on and the clock is ticking, so act before midnight tonight. Next. There are, of course, other sources of finance, state funds, local charitable funds. A big source of this was going to be state green banks, which were going to be funded through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is under attack and probably dead. One interesting point about the charitable donations, a foundation, even a community foundation, sometimes will make not only a grant, but they'll also make an investment, a PRI, or program-related investment. So if their strategy is to, help the poor and save the planet, they may be willing to be an investor in a project, not just give you a grant. So next. The big one that was going to help directly is the Solar for All program from EPA. That's $7 billion with awards covering every state. the Trump administration is trying to kill it, and that's gone to court. So we'll see how that plays out. But given the fact that the clock is ticking on the tax credits, it's really unfortunate that this program is tied up probably for months. So it may or may not be useful before the tax credits run out. We'll see if it's available after that. Next. Yeah, there's a map of where all the money went. The big states got really quite a lot of money, $250 million in the biggest states. And maybe most impactful was the money going to some smaller states, like 62 million in Nebraska, for example. That's, you know, completely transformative. Okay, next. There are a number of other federal programs of various stages of disrepair. The REAP program, Rural Energy for America from USDA. They've announced that solar is mostly excluded now from that program because they want to preserve farmland. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund I mentioned, that is in court, but we'll see how it goes. New Era is a USDA program, which was almost $10 billion in grants to rural electric co-ops. Every one of those has a different proposal, so it's hard to say whether they will benefit, whether you can fit in a low-income solar project into their program or not. It probably depends on the local proposal. And it does, as far as I can tell, it still is in effect. So we'll see. The Environment and Climate Justice block grants also got whacked and is in court. Next one. Oh, and actually, I want to add something in the chat here. I neglected to make a slide for this, and until I realized it later. I also work with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab on the Department of Energy's National Community Solar Partnership, NCSP. And in the chat, I have links to this. NCSP is a program that gives free technical assistance, training, etc. You sign up as a member, and then you free membership, and then you get access to these things. And you can put in a technical assistance request for free help from the labs and consultants. Also, the Community Power Accelerator. That's an online marketplace where you post your solar project, and it has various capital providers, lenders, investors, foundations who might want to invest in your project. So it really tries to bring people together. And then the PV Magazine article I'll mention in a minute. So back to the slides here. On the state policies for rooftop solar, there's been a shift away from net metering to net billing, which reduces the value of the rooftop solar. The way around that is to install batteries, which are expensive, but they deliver more value. They give you backup power during outages. So that's kind of where the ball is headed for rooftop solar. With community solar, there's a big trend toward low-income requirements. Of the 25 states that have a policy, 21 of them have low-income provisions. So, and some of those are getting quite large. And then lastly, there are a couple of states that are incorporating solar into their energy assistance programs, like Colorado. Next. Yeah, and there's the map. I think Bill showed this map earlier. These are the states with community solar policies. An interesting thing to note on Bill's map is that even the states that are blank here that don't have law or regulation still have community solar projects. Next. Yeah, and here's a slide about it. If there's no policy, then there's basically no restrictions. It just depends on what the utility is willing to do, because the utility controls access to the customers, access to the grid, access to the bills. So if they're not willing, then it doesn't happen. There have been some workarounds. One workaround is to essentially convert the energy into cash and then deliver the cash to the households, like with a commercial solar, like a rooftop on a warehouse or something. It'll have a net metering arrangement, so it's behind the meter, but then they'll donate the savings to low-income households. So that's one workaround. I did a paper with Berkeley Lab called Opportunity States that talks about some examples of what kind of projects are happening in states that don't have explicit policies. And there's a link to it there. Next. So the last couple slides here, what are the long-term prospects of solar? Do you want to get into it now, or is the policy turmoil going to kill it off? I think the pro arguments are that solar continues to grow rapidly and the price continues to drop. Meanwhile, retail electric prices keep going up. So it's financially attractive even as we lose incentives. It's going to be still competitive, possibly. Batteries, likewise, are falling in price. They deliver a lot of extra benefits. You can integrate batteries into community solar projects too, which can make it more valuable as a wholesale power provider. And then there are workaround things just emerging like plug-in solar. And with CISA, we're actually working on an explainer about what is plug-in solar. It's essentially a very small system, like 2 to 4 solar panels with inverters that you just plug into an outlet in your home. No electrician, no permit. Whether you can do it kind of depends on the state. And only Utah so far has clarified the legality of it. But there are possibly another 10 states interested in it and working on it. So it's just emerging now, but it could be kind of a way to get away from all the barriers that can be created for solar. So again, the con argument for getting into solar, we don't know if the tax credits are going away forever. In the past, they've often come on and off. They've expired, they've been renewed. But you know, things may be different now because the industry is much bigger. There's the tariffs on imported solar enjoy bipartisan support. They were created in the Obama administration and extended and revised by Biden and Trump. So on the other hand, there's a growing amount of domestic production of solar panels. So that's between the tariffs and the Inflation Reduction Act incentives, we're finally getting more of a US solar industry. And ultimately, there's a lot of ongoing opposition from oil and gas industries and the Trump administration. So we will see what further damage will be done in that area. Last one. Sorry. And as I mentioned, Bill Grant and I wrote an article recently that we put in PV Magazine, which is the solar trade press, about why it's a good idea for solar developers to work with CAP agencies like US Solar has and All Energy Solar is. You know, as Greta mentioned, community solar is a strange product to a lot of people. They've never bought it before, they've never heard of it. If you want to sign up low-income households to that product, it takes a lot of explaining. And that's the whole value of this partnership between CAPS and solar marketers, is that CAPS are the trusted voice with plenty of income verified customers eager to save money. But there's an additional point of logic that I wanted to underscore. Because it's difficult to sign up low-income customers, it's also expensive. Sending people door to door with a high rejection rate costs a lot of money. If you can partner with a CAP, it's a lot cheaper way to get customers. So it's really a win-win in this department too. It's cheaper for the solar marketer, and it's a new source of revenue for the CAPs. So, and there's a link to that article in the chat as well, along with my email. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Ben. We are at the end of our time, but we'd be happy to take any questions that any of the listeners might have for us. You can either, I don't know, who was monitoring the chat for questions? Is that Amy or Kendra?
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button. I don't think that we've had any questions come in, which, you know, is fair. There's a lot of information. I encourage you all to, you know, take this back, think about it, review it when we send out the recording and the slides, and please feel free to reach out to us at NCAP or any of these amazing presenters with any questions that you come up with at a later time. We'd be really happy to talk through any hesitations you're having or anything you aren't quite understanding. You know, we're here to help. That's our whole goal, is to help you guys out. So if there are no questions, then I will not hold y'all any longer. If you have a second, please make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, Weatherization Plus. That's our general energy newsletter that goes out every week. And launching next year, we're going to have a solar specific newsletter that you can sign up for. And that'll be a little less frequent than our weatherization newsletter, but we hope to provide you all with some really, really good information. And again, these links will be in the email that I send out to everybody that registered. And with that, thank you all for attending. Shout out to the Kresge Foundation for sponsoring our solar work at NCAP. And thank you again to all of our panelists for providing a great presentation. And hope to see everyone in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.